Let me tell you a story about how I inherited 47 acres of Montana lakefront, a place stitched into every memory I ever had of home, the kind of land my grandfather claimed back in the 60s where I learned to fish and figured out what it meant to belong somewhere. And if you think that's just some sentimental speech, wait till you hear what I saw when I came back 6 months after my mother died, because there on our old land stood four brand new mansions shining like they owned the whole world. The HOA said they'd bought the property fair and square, contract and notary seal and all everything. But the truth, if you're the type who's ever locked horns with an HOA, you're in good company here. I didn't know it yet, but the president of that HOA, with her magazine smile and death grip on power, was about to make the mistake of her life, and I was about to cost her $5 million. Now, the drive from Denver up to Montana is 8 hours if you don't stop, but I'd been making that journey in my mind for half a year. Ever since I picked up the phone and heard Sullivan Waverly, your mother's gone. That's how they said it, full name and all, like that had softened the blow. I hung up, stared at the half-finished chapter on my laptop, Land Disputes in 1880s Montana, and realized I was about to live the kind of story I'd only written about. October in Montana has this air that bites right through you like it's warning winter's coming fast. I'd driven that road as a kid 100 times, pressed to the glass in Dad's truck, watching the mountains stand guard. This time I was alone. The passenger seat packed with boxes of old papers, Mom's deeds, Grandpa's hand-drawn maps, photographs yellowed by time. 47 acres that held ghosts and maybe a little hope. See, I'd been writing a book on pioneer families, how folks lost land to lawyers and time, sometimes a little fraud thrown in for spice. Never thought I'd be documenting my own. But 2 weeks back, an email arrived regarding trespassing on HOA property from someone named Laverne at the Lakeside Meadows HOA. Then a letter, real paper, and that old knot in my stomach started forming. When I finally got up there, the turnoff came quicker than I remembered. There was a new sign, Lakeside Meadows Community, private property. All crisp white letters, shiny as a new penny. Not right, not after 60 years of Waverly land. I turned anyway, gravel crunching under the tires, winding through the pines to the lake. The road had been graded, fresh gravel, smooth as a city driveway. Somebody spent money here. Then I saw it, 8 feet of black metal fence running across what used to be open pasture. I stopped the car, boots on gravel. Just stood there trying to piece together the memories with what was staring back at me. On the far side where Grandpa taught me to cast a line stood those houses, not cabins but honest-to-God mansions. 4 of them each, 5,000 square feet if they were an inch stone and glass all the way to the sky, sitting right on the shore I used to skip rocks across. My writer brain started logging details, manicured lawns, infinity pools, 3-car garages. My son Hart was just trying to understand how this happened. Those boxes in my trunk had the original surveys, the deeds, all the proof you could want. None of them mentioned an HOA. None said sold. I found a locked gate a quarter-mile down, pressed the intercom. Security answered, voice cold as January. I told them who I was. Sir, this is private HOA property. You'll need to contact the office. Click. That was that. So I did what writers do. I started walking. Followed the fence west till I found where the post didn't quite meet the rocks. It wasn't trespassing if it was my land right. Squeezed through thorns, tearing at my jacket. The view cleared and I saw all 4 mansions spread out in a neat semicircle around a private beach. My grandfather's dock, the one he built by hand in '68, was gone. I pulled out my phone and snapped photos. The bear-shaped boulder, the twin pines marking the old boundary, they matched my memory clear as day. Said these houses were right smack on Waverly land. Then this guy comes out, mid-40s, wine glass, expensive, casual. He storms up, "Hey, what the hell are you doing on my property?" I told him my name, told him whose land this really was. He laughed. "I paid $2.3 million for this, paperwork and all. Get out before I call the cops." I said, "Go ahead. I'd love to see your paperwork." His smile slipped a little. Minutes later, security rolls up in a golf cart, polite but firm. Asks me to leave, says I can sort it out through proper channels. I take more photos, make sure to catch the angry homeowner, the guard, the houses, all of it. Then I drove to the old family cabin a mile north, just outside the HOA's claimed turf. The cabin looked smaller than I remembered. Logs, faded roof sagging. I unlocked the door and stepped into that heavy old smell of dust and memory. I spread everything on the pine table: deeds, surveys, photos, and a letter from my mom written 6 months before she died. Sullivan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I need to tell you something. She said the HOA sent papers last year, claimed we'd sold them the lakefront 12 acres. She said she never signed, never agreed. They threatened to sue. She was too sick to fight, but she asked me not to let them take what was ours, not to let them erase us. I read that letter 3 times, looking out the window at the lights from those new mansions. My mother was right. I did know how to fight this. I'd told other people's stories for years, now I'd have to tell my own. I opened my laptop, made a new folder, Lakeside Case. Started scanning documents, uploading photographs, building what could become a legal case or a book or maybe both. The writer in me was already outlining. The son in me just wanted to scream. I Googled property lawyers in Denver, left a voicemail for the best one I could find. Then I emailed the HOA office, polite, formal, asking for every scrap of paper they had about the alleged sale. What I didn't write but meant was that they should start getting ready for the fight of their lives. Because what they didn't know, I'd spent years documenting how people like them worked. I knew their tricks, where they cut corners, where they forged signatures, where they counted on victims being too poor, too scared, or too dead to fight back. And I was good at telling stories that made people angry, stories that demanded justice. Next morning, I marched into the HOA office on Main Street, fancy as a boutique, but all fake wood and fake smiles. Met Laverne, the secretary, practiced warmth, but her eyes gave her away. She said Prudence Fairmont, the president, was very busy. I told her I'd wait. The walls were plastered with photos, mansions, ribbon cuttings, the board posing like conquerors. At the center, Prudence herself, perfect posture, smile that didn't reach her eyes. I did some quick research: 20 years in real estate, principal at Lakeside Development, LLC, responsible for 9 similar projects, all rural Montana, all lakefront or river access. Finally, she called me in. Office neat as a magazine cover desk, white as snow, abstract art. I pretended to understand. She smiled, extended her hand, cold as ice. I didn't waste time, told her what I'd seen, what I knew. She said everything was legal, all above board, showed me a scanned contract from April 2019 with what looked like my mother's signature. But the angle was off, the pressure too, even like someone had traced it. My stomach dropped. My mother didn't sign this, I said. She told me you were trying to steal the land. Prudence's face didn't flinch. It's a legal document, notarized, recorded with the county. She got fair market value. I pulled out the deed, 47 acres still in our family's name, no record of any sale. She leaned back, studied me. You're a writer, aren't you? About land disputes. You should know how the law works. We have the contract, we have the notary, we have county approval. What do you have, memories? I have my mother's letter, I said, and her medical records showing she was incapacitated in 2019, and I know how to find the truth. That's when her smile froze. If you're threatening to write something defamatory... I shook my head. No threats, just the truth. Left that office burning with adrenaline. Went straight to the county clerk, got copies of every document they had. The original deed from '62, the 2019 contract, complete with the suspicious signature and a notary seal from some guy in Pinewood 30 miles off. Clerk said it looked legit, but if I thought there was fraud, I'd have to take it to court. Called the lawyer, Benedict Hartwell, told him the whole story. He warned me, this is going to be expensive. We'll need a forensic document examiner, we'll have to depose the notary, challenge the county's acceptance of the deed. 50 grand at least, maybe more. I told him I'd find a way. This wasn't about money. This was about my mother's last request. Benedict got to work. First, the handwriting expert compared the signature to 15 samples of my mother's writing. The contract was forged. Next, we tracked down the notary. Turns out he hadn't verified the signer properly. Just took the word of a real estate rep, Prudence herself. He'd even been paid 10 times his normal fee. Looked at my mom's photo, couldn't say for sure if she was the one who signed. His voice cracked when we pressed him. I just trusted the process. Then we started digging into Prudence's past deals, 9 similar developments. In 6, land had been bought from elderly folks who died within 2 years. Every price way below market value. Some families said their parents never mentioned wanting to sell. I started contacting them, most had given up fighting. But now, with proof, a few were ready to join in. We hired a veteran surveyor, Dr. Merritt, to prove the boundaries. She worked with Grandpa's old maps, Current GPS historical photos, every marker lined up. The mansions were built smack in the middle of Waverly Land, not just close to the line, but 100% over it. Then a man named Dalton Reeves came to my door, nervous, desperate, but ready to talk. He'd sold to the HOA cheap, then realized he'd been cheated. He knew others like him. If you're fighting them, I'll help. I'll testify. That mattered more than I can say. When the big HOA meeting came, the place was packed. Prudence tried to paint me as a troublemaker, a writer hungry for scandal. But I waited. Then, with everyone watching, I laid out the evidence, the forensic report, the surveyor's map, the notary's admission. And Dalton spoke up too, said he'd been cheated, said others had too. The room turned. Prudence lost her cool, blurted out that we didn't deserve the land. One board member resigned on the spot. People started shouting, demanding answers. 2 weeks later, Prudence's lawyer called offering a $1.5 million settlement if I dropped the suit and signed a gag order. I said no. This wasn't about money. This was about my mother's last request, about making sure everyone knew the truth. We went to trial. The judge was tough, no patience for drama. Our experts laid out the evidence clear and undeniable. The defense tried to muddy things, brought in their own experts, said boundaries were fuzzy, signatures could change with age. But nothing stuck. Prudence took the stand, got tripped up by her own words from the meeting. When the jury came back, the verdict was unanimous: fraud, forgery, trespassing, unjust enrichment. $5 million in damages. The mansions would either be demolished or turned over to me. Prudence was removed from the board, the company went bankrupt. Others filed suits and won. The notary lost his license. The story hit national news, how HOAs could become vehicles for fraud, how the elderly could be targeted, how one determined family could change everything. 4 months later, I sat on the porch of the restored cabin looking out at the lake. The mansion owners had signed leases, paid fair rent, and finally acknowledged whose land it was. The new HOA board asked me to join, but I declined, settled for helping them preserve the shoreline, keep the wildness that mattered most. With part of the settlement, I started a legal defense fund in my mother's name so others wouldn't have to fight alone. Would you go through all this years of struggle just to keep a promise to someone who'd never lived to see the result? Sometimes the battles pick you not because you can win, but because walking away means losing who you are. My mother asked me not to let them erase us. I kept that promise. Maybe in keeping it, I helped others too. Spring came gentle that year. The ice broke up on the lake, wildflowers pushing through. The new folks who lived in the mansions were quieter now, asked before they fished off the dock. I rebuilt the cabin just like Grandpa would have wanted, used the rest of the money for conservation. Even started teaching others how to research property records so no one else would get blindsided by fancy paperwork and legalese. One morning I walked down to the water with a coffee and a paper boat folded the way Grandpa showed me as a kid. Wrote my mother's name on it, set it loose on the lake, watched it drift, carrying memory and grief, finally letting her go. The sun rose gold on the water, the world quiet except for the soft slap of waves on the shore. I kept my promise, Mom. They didn't erase us. Justice, I learned, isn't about revenge or even restitution. It's about restoration, giving back what was stolen, restoring dignity to those dismissed, setting the record straight. Some inheritances aren't measured in acres or dollars. They're measured in the courage it takes to stand up even when the cost is everything. So tell me, if it was you, would you fight that long for a promise, for justice, for a piece of home? Or would you walk away and let them rewrite the story? Drop your thoughts below, and if you've ever fought an HOA or any kind of power that tried to take what was yours, share your story. This isn't just my fight, it's all of ours.